Oh God. What's going on, podcast fam? It's your boy Jason Craig, aka the friendly neighborhood dreadhead, and I'm here with an interview for you guys today on this Sunday afternoon. So, uh, let me introduce you guys to uh writer. Let me get it right, y'all. Let me name everything so I make sure I get it right. Writer, letterer, spoken word artist, comic creator. He graduated with a master of fine in writing and the state of broadcast and media. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Snake. Did I
Hello.
do it right? Did I do it
Yeah,
right?
it
Did I
did.
do it?
Yeah, this is like it's a bit ego boosting. That was quite an intro. Thank you very much for that.
We try to boost egos here because got to boost, got to boost the egos. Got to boost the egos. Got to make you feel good. So I feel good. So Snake, so what's going on, man? How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Yeah, it's just Sunday here in the UK. Just chilling, really. Had a couple of other interviews and things. So just been talking about my comics, talking about comics, which is awesome. It's fun.
Okay. So you said you got a few interviews. Well, we're gonna be another one today. So hopefully you don't get tired of hearing my voice. 'Cause I know most people that watch probably do get tired of hearing my voice. But without further ado, uh, tell us how did you get into your field? What that fine arts bug, that writing bug?
Sure. I mean, I've always written, really. I've always been a writer. I grew up reading comics and I wanted to be a screenwriter initially and playwright. So I've worked in and out of the film industry. But then during lockdown, I started trying to make comics and I really got the bug. And, the collaboration is so beautiful and perfect when you get the right artist. And so, yeah, just started making comics, short comics, and then just continued. And, even if no one reads my comics, which I really hope you guys do, but even if no one did, I'd still make them because it clears my headspace. It allows me to express myself, and it's just really fun. I just love coming up with worlds, characters, things like that. It's awesome.
Okay. Well, you said that you grew up reading comics. Me myself, I'm the same way. What would you say was the comic that inspired you the most?
Preacher, 100%, easy as it's the greatest thing ever in my opinion. Like of films, of everything, I just love Garth Ennis's Preacher. It's awesome. It's just awesome. It's
Okay, so
perfect.
okay,
That's why I was literally like, when the TV show came out, I was like, well, I'm not going to watch it because why would I watch something that's based on the most perfect thing imaginable? They're not going to do it justice. And I heard they didn't, in my personal opinion. I mean,
so so you like the dark stuff. You like the dark and gritty stuff. Okay. So run us through like your child how your childhood was like.
uh, yeah. I mean, I read a lot of comics as a kid. Um, Kind of watched a lot of TV, stuff like that, which, I guess it kind of like got me set up to try and tell stories from an early age. I was an only child. So my mum's Vietnamese Chinese, my dad is English. So, and I was an only child, so I was spend a lot of time by myself, messing around, playing, coming up with stories. I suppose that's why I became a storyteller. Um, yeah, and then at university, went and did a film degree, worked in and out of the film industry, did a master's in writing, which helped as well at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, and then just made a executive decision when it lockdown and was like, I just want to make comics. Actually, I know a lot of like comic writers, they go into comics and they become comic writers, and then they want to, like, Edward Brubaker or whatever, or Brian Michael Bendis, and they go in and they start writing screenplays and films. But I kind of like comics. I like the purity of the medium. I kind of just want to make comics, particularly because, yeah, I just love them.
You know, everybody should read comics because there's a comic for everybody. Like I say, for anime, there's a comic
Yeah.
for everybody. But I'm not gonna try to sell people on comics. We here to talk about you and only you. So my question is, like with being you say like you were in the film industry for years, and then you transitioned
Mhm.
to comics. How was it necessarily in the film industry, and how it's different from you being a comic book writer? I guess full time at this point.
Sure. So, I mean, I've sort of been in and out because I've been doing stuff. So when I left university at my BA, I started working as a PA at the BBC for for television studios. So in the UK, there's like a show called Jonathan Ross Show, and it's like um, interviews with celebrities and things like that. And he's like a film reviewer anyway. He's like a personality in the UK. So I looked after like the changing rooms and things like that, and I just generally helped out around the TV studio. Um, and then I got into prop work, which is set decoration, things like that. If you need to dress a 14th century Elizabethan boudoir, then I would need to get all the props for that to dress it to make it look authentic, and that was good. I worked on Kick Ass 2, I worked on Black Mirror, season 2 of Black Mirror. But with all these jobs, I mean, especially being a prop man, you're like a removals man with a really good paycheck, but that's about it. You're not creating and generating what you want. And I kind of wanted to just do that. And I didn't have any contacts, so I wasn't able to become a screenwriter. I tried to become a screenwriter, but no contacts, wasn't able to do that. And so I did a lot of so I kind of gave up because the thing is, I would I don't mind sitting and writing for 15 hours a day because it's what I love. I don't mind that. But then I'm doing like 15 hours as a prop man. It's okay. Not really that interested that much in it. And so I just gave up on it, and like I just started working, just getting jobs that gave me the least amount of responsibility so I could go home and just write and just work on my writing. And then I worked as a script reader as well for a bit of time, behind the scenes. So script reader, breaking down stories, and that helped me with my writing as well. And then just started putting comics out there, doing my general J jobs and putting comics out there, and just got noticed by a couple of publishing companies, and hopefully going to be noticed for some more, and then you just build that way. And I'm hopefully releasing 2 comics this year, so we'll see.
Okay, okay. So like you said, at this point, writing for you, I guess like penning comics for you, it feels more than a job. It's more of something that you love to do, right?
Yeah. It just goes hand in hand, you know what I mean? Like I was in Melbourne, I did a working holiday visa in Melbourne for a bit of time, and I was in a hostel, and there was just no room to write. It was just, there's this chill out area and there were bunk beds and I had to share bunk beds. And I got so frustrated being there because I couldn't write. And that was like an interesting moment for me when I realized I really need to like spend a couple of hours every day or whatever, or like a little bit of time just writing, just to express myself, to create worlds, characters. It's awesome. I mean, when I finish this interview, I'm gonna continue with a page breakdown for another one shot I'm writing at the minute because it's fun. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Hey, man. Cause like you, writer myself, so I understand
yeah.
how addicting it can be. Cause you start writing like, oh, I got a new idea for this character or for a new world. So I do get you on that. Now for people aspiring to be writers, whether it's uh, poetry, film, what advice would you give those people?
Just keep doing it. You got to do your 5,000 hours, and it's lonely. It's really lonely being stuck in a room for like 15 hours, 12 hours a time. And I always think, a lot of my friends who are in the film industry and stuff, they're the people who stuck at it. And like I stuck at writing for this long. Obviously, I changed areas that I did, but I still was like, look, I'm going to find what I want to do. I've been writing for ages, and then I think I'm going to do comics. Okay, I'm going to stick to that. And then even if I hadn't been published this year, I would still be making comics. So I just and like a lot of people, like a lot of writers, like Brian Michael Bendis, people like that, they say the same thing. Just keep be generating ideas and creating stuff. Keep using that muscle memory, and somewhere on the spectrum, you'll be if you commit your whole life to one thing, you'll probably be a master of it. Somewhere on that spectrum. Not saying you're going to be, Aaron Sorkin, the greatest one of the greatest TV writers, but like you'll be somewhere on there. And only now, and it's totally true, because for ages I thought I was, maybe occasionally it pops into your head, maybe I'm chasing this crazy dream, but now people are noticing my stuff, and I'm not saying I'm like a writer like Garth Ennis or anyone like that. I'm not saying that, but I'm on that journey and I'm getting a bit noticed now, and I'm getting stuff created, and publishers are wanting to make it. So just keep at it, keep making stuff that you want to make and you want to see made. Yeah, that's my advice.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was me and Snake's TED Talks. But hey,
Yeah.
I I really do like what you just said. It's inspiring because I know for a lot of people wanting to get out there and be artists, be writers, you will have people say, "Oh, it's not a realistic dream." Get you a regular 9 to 5 job. But for people that are creators,
Yeah.
it's like I've always lived by, if you have a passion for it, then pursue it. You never know, like you never know if a dream can be if a dream cannot become reality if you don't go for it. So I do really appreciate that. But we here to talk today about one of your Kickstarters you got going on for your comic.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry I can't put it on the screen due to like technical difficulties, but I did put it in the comment section on YouTube for you guys to look, and I'll put it on the Facebook replay as well, so you guys can go check out this man's work. But the comic for the Kickstarter is for the comic The View of the Phoenix Trees. Now, I'm already loving the I'm already loving the art because I can see like it's very like colorful. It like the detail is like very like I love like the detailed drawings of it. I like the shadows on the characters. And for me, if you know me, anybody knows me when it comes to comics, there is two things that I'm like, okay, that's some good art. It is it is lighting, and it is lighting when it comes to facial expressions and shadows and water. If you could draw me some good water, splash page, you got me sold. So before I ramble on about my likes of comics, tell us a little bit about The View of the Phoenix Trees, and give us a little bit synopsis of it.
Sure. So it's based on true story. So as I've said, I'm sort of mixed race. So I'm Vietnamese Chinese. So it's telling the story of my grandparents meeting. My grandfather was Chinese. My grandmother was Vietnamese. Telling their meeting in Vietnam, living through the Vietnam War. And then after that period, China had a falling out with Vietnam. Everyone who was a Chinese immigrant and lived in Vietnam got kicked out, and the vice versa, same thing in China. And so my granddad was forced to leave, the whole family were, and there was actually a mass exodus with a lot of these sort of immigrants having to move, and they were called the boat people. So my grandparents, they lived on a boat for 6 months, trying to travel to Shanghai, to stop off in Macau. They were put in a camp in Macau, like a refugee camp, lived there for 2 years until finally settling in the UK. And also at the same time, that's the sort of realist, autobiographical kind of story. And then also at the same time, you've got this fantasy tale, which is told in parallel to that. So the Vietnamese creation story, with Loch Lan Kwai, the Dragon King, and his fairy princess, and how their story mirrors my grandparents' story. And that's what The View of the Phoenix Trees is kind of about.
I'm not gonna lie, that you told me on that actually because like I said, um, it's not like your really, I guess, your typical comic story. It's like you said, it's based off of something that's personal to you, which I feel are the best stories. But
Mm,
also, it's also contrasting that with like a mythical
absolutely.
legend, and that is also pretty cool because honestly. I don't know about you, but when you were telling me that, I heard the dollar signs going off. I heard Netflix. I heard Netflix calling in the future. Just I'm letting you know, most of the time when I predict things, they come true. So be waiting for a
Oh,
call.
thank you.
Oh, so like I can tell that this story is like very personal to you, and like, has this been something that you've been having brewing for a while, or just recently?
No, yeah, I mean, I've been working on this for about, wow. I live in Manchester now in the UK, but when I was living in London, yeah, I was working on it when I was living in London. So that's like a good two years ago or whatever now. I was working. I remember writing it actually because, like, a lot of these jobs, these 9 to 5 jobs that I do, I don't really care about. Quite.
Right.
Don't do my bosses.
I,
And so any time I have to myself, I'll just write. I'll write one. So I remember being like an office manager and looking after sort of like a building, like looking after like this some couple of rooms and things. And I just had time in the day, so I remember tazzing out, writing out the script there, and being like, I've got the time. I can finally write this and finish it off. So yeah, and then just the basic story. My mum and my family would tell me because obviously it's part of their history, and so I always heard this story, and then it just clicked when I was in during lockdown. Why don't I just turn it into a comic? And obviously, it's both historical and it spans such a long time period that it'd be so expensive to do as a film or whatever like that. So for me personally, I just thought comic medium would be perfect. So I just thought, so I decided to do it as 4 issues. Do it as a mini series. If it sells well, then it'd be great to make it into sort of like a beautiful kind of like graphic novel. But each issue is based on a different season and tells a different story in that season and mirrors that kind of season because the story in itself is very elemental and has that very much kind of natural vibe about it. And then also a nice little point about it is that there's two different art styles. So I have different artists doing different styles. So the grandparents' tale, which is very realist and what you've described already, Hernan Gonzalez, my line art artist, his style is very realist. And then you've also got Damien Lefitte's colors, which are very plush and beautiful and bright. But then when we tell the and then quite regimented as well, normal kind of like comic looking style with 7 panels to a page roughly. But then you've also got Andrew Drillon, who's drawing the fantasy side of it. So completely different kind of style of artist, and it's more plush. And those are kind of splash pages with no panels, and that's telling the Dragon King story. So you've got that contrast between the two stories as well, which I
okay.
think is beautiful.
Like I said, honestly, man, that is just that is very like it's very interesting, but also I feel like it is very ambitious because you're telling, like you said, you're basically telling the same story, but two different ways. And also, now on top of that, you have three. You said three different artists working on the project, so each point of view, it feels unique to like it feels very unique in its own way, even though it's the same thing. So I do find that, like, honestly, like I've talked to like a lot of creators, like all of them are very, very talented, very good, and like you're also one of amongst the the people I say very good because
Oh,
you're
thank
very
you.
you're very creative with how you portraying your story because not all people, and trust me, I review movies and TV. Not all people can do the different point of view, same themes, different point of view aspect. I've seen a lot of terrible ones, but the way that you've described, you're very confident. You're very confident in how you speak it, and you got me interested. Like if this was an elevator pitch, I would have uh I would have threw your ass in the basement, and you're like you got. I'm gonna work you like Apple animators. Like we need this done now. We need seasons put out now. But I really do like it. Now I want to pull back the curtain, pick inside your brain a little bit. When you're writing a comic book script, how like do you script it different than you would like a script for a TV show, a movie, same way, or how do you go about writing your comic book script?
Yeah, I mean, so I conform to like there's two different style. So comic scripts are a little bit different than screenplays. They all each medium has its own form for the way that you write scripts. I mean, with comics, there's two different styles. So there's full script, which is like your screenplay. You're writing out everything that you see. Obviously, you don't want to do an Alan Moore and describe. I mean, he's a genius, but still, he apparently like describes everything, like everything. You obviously need to just give the artist some inspiration, so like a couple of lines, because it's gonna get bored otherwise. And then there's the Marvel style, which was created. I'm sure you probably saw a lot of your audience know about this already. The Marvel style, which is that was generated, I think, in the 60s, 70s, and it's the idea that you don't write everything; you just write a rough synopsis of what's on the page. Um, and that sort of tells a rough idea, and then you don't write any dialogue. Your artist comes in, draws that rough idea of what's on the page, and then you come in and you write the dialogue around what they've drawn. So there's different ways of doing it. I just do full script, but if an artist wanted me to do another way, I could do that for them. I think it's all about the collaboration. So whatever's going to give your artist the best inspiration, you should write it whatever way they want, really, depending.
Right. So how is it working with three different artists on the same
Well,
project?
sure. Well, I haven't started. So Andrew hasn't started yet.
Okay.
So he hasn't started drawing any of the fantasy elements yet. But Hanan and Damien, they know each other, so they're mates. So the reason why Damien got on board was because he colors Hanan's stuff anyway. So generally Hanan would send it to him anyway. So it's not I don't have to really do that much liaising really. And I kind of like being able to talk. The comic was a bit too much. Like originally, I was going to get Hanan to do those fantasy elements, but then he had too much work on, and so I was quite happy to get like completely different artists to get those bits done for me. Because then what you're doing is it's not looking as big a pie. When you've got one artist and he's got to do 22 pages, it feels a bit more of a mammoth thing. Whereas if you've got two different artists doing different portions of the comic, it feels like it breaks the comic down. So actually, it's actually kind of easier, actually, if anything.
Right. Right. So now, me, want to write my own comic. I know that these artists get
Hmm.
expensive. So my question to you is,
Yeah.
how are you able to do this? Because I know a lot of these artists, they pay a lot just for not black and white pages. So I like, what? How do you go about it?
I have two jobs.
No, yeah,
I have two jobs. I work a 15-hour day on Friday, so my Fridays are gone now. I mean, the thing is, right? Obviously, this is a Kickstarter because I can't afford to pay for this myself. Because it's $100 per page. It's pretty. If you want a good artist, it's pretty much $100 per page. If you're lucky, you find someone who's just as talented and they're a little bit less. That's great. I'm actually working on a one shot, and I found an artist who's a little bit cheaper than that, and that's really great. And hopefully, going to start that relationship with him and creating the comic. But yeah, it's tough, man. And then for this, I had to do a Kickstarter. I mean, but I find Kickstarters quite difficult and tricky. Like for me, the easiest way of making comic is having the money and just paying the
right,
writer, rather than doing this whole advertising business model. I mean, it's lucky for me that with this comic, with View of the Phoenix Trees, I have a publisher, Chant, who's willing to run the Kickstarter for me. And now I'm learning a lot while he's been doing it, so that's been great. So hopefully in the future I can do my own Kickstarter. But yeah, I mean, I I got real when I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do this project before my publisher came on board. I was trying to do this project, and I was like, "There's no way I can do it." Like in terms of money wise. And then I thought the only way is going to be a Kickstarter. And then I started trying to set up a Kickstarter, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't even understand what to do or how to do it because my brain isn't wired that way. It's like I write stories, so I got so depressed. And then like for a couple of weeks and months, and then finally I managed to find a publisher, and then the project got resurrected, and it was great. But yeah, it was a bit of a or it's been a rocky road. You know how it is. You know.
Oh yeah, man, most definitely. So now, as far as when it comes to artists that like, well, just comic book writers or just writers in general, what would you say like the artist that inspired you the most?
Yeah, I got. You do you want specifically just artists rather than writers, just specific artists as
I mean, you
such?
can do artists, writers, just who inspired the Snake we know today.
I mean, Dave McKee is next level. Like he's not like he surpasses even comics and goes into like he is just an artist. Like the guy who obviously did um, all the Sandman front covers. He worked with obviously Neil Gaiman. I mean Neil Gaiman, whatever you want to say. Obviously, Sandman is an incredible comic, and it's inspired me so much. Garth Ennis with Preacher, just these kind of really out there stories that push the boundaries. At the minute, I'm reading Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and loving it, and Fiona Apple's drawings are next level awesome. Um, Artists like Tim Bradstreet, he did a lot of covers and interior art, a lot of front covers of like Punisher Max. Once again, Garth Ennis, that stuff. I mean, I just take if I like something, I just take it and choose it, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing and great. I mean, there's nothing better than the fusion of a great writer and a great artist, and you just when you find that combination, it's just perfect. It's brilliant. I mean, you also have those comics where you're like, oh, the writing is brilliant, but the art, it could be a little bit better, or the art is amazing, but I don't know what is going on in this story. It's terribly written, so it's just lovely when you find that equilibrium and balance. And yeah, I mean, a lot of artists just inspire me. In fact, William, I don't remember. Do you know Echo, the comic
Yeah,
Echo?
yeah, I know the comic Echo.
Yeah, yeah. And you know that guy William, what's his name, who also did Desolation Jones, Warren Ellis's book.
Oh yeah,
His art, I just found his art recently, and he did the Sandman sequel as well that Neil Gaiman released recently, and his art is just next level. And I what I love about his art is it's not just housed in panels, and then the panels are also art. They're kind of like they're kind of like shaped in different shapes and ways and things. So you're
right,
creating a tapestry rather than just a basic layout of 7 panels per page. And that to me is absolute beauty when you're creating a piece of art on top of that.
right. Okay, okay. So I'm assuming that you're familiar. You've been familiar with like the modern, like the modern ways comics are done now. Well, as a kid, I grew up watching, anime and whatnot, the Dragon Ball Z's, the Death Notes and whatnot. And like, it seems that Eastern style is kind of flowing more into Western style comics. Do you think that is here to stay, or is that just something that's just gonna come and go like a fad?
I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult to say. I think it'll trickle its way in, and it'll be. I think with these kind of things, with um, these these mergences of different cultures and things like that, and different styles and things like that, it all just becomes a melting pot. So it'll become more. We'll see it more often. It'll keep happening. I mean, yeah, things come and go, and like new trends come and go, things like that. Like like the Western was in for a little bit of time, and then it left again. And then it's kind of in again now because of Yellowstone and TV shows like that. So I think I think this Eastern element will just keep flowing into comics, coming in and out because it's there. I mean, it's so prevalent in manga and things like that, and a lot of Western readers read that kind of stuff now. So yeah, why not?
Right, right. Yeah. Dang, I'm trying to think of more things to ask. I feel like I've asked all the important hard hitting questions.
Oh,
Uh,
what I can do for you though. You know what I can do if you
what's,
want.
what's up?
So because I am a spoken word artist, I can perform a piece about my favorite 4 comics if you want. If you got 5 minutes, I can do
Hey,
something for you.
hey, y'all! This is the first ever. We're gonna hear some spoken word right here on Brang Da Popcorn podcast. Oh, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours, Snake.
Okay. So this is called A Life in Panels and Pages. So I've been into comics since I was a kid, before all this Marvel DC adaptation bullshit hit. Forget film and TV moving images, it's all about the unified synergy of words and pictures. A literary super team up, creating fictions to rapture imaginations. Through school uniform and black tie work, I've always had my head between pages, forged with the intelligent craftsmanship of artist, writer, creatives. These 24-page coloured bits of paper have shared space with me through the ages, but there are four landmark reads that bookmark my life in stages. The first comic I'd like to mention is the dystopian political page turner Transmetropolitan, with a futuristic Hunter S. Thompson as its main character. Brought this comic with me, luckily, on hour-plus long-haul journeys to work as a customer service monkey at a call centre company the other side of the city. Cattle-cramped carriages and commuter silences faded into the background, with my imagination spellbound. Because these comics are more than just paper and ink. They're linked to a safe space where my head can think and wait for the darker things on my plate to dissipate. My second selection is the zombie survival saga of The Walking Dead, which swam in my slipstream across two different decades as separate reading events. I began reading when my hopes of a film career got dashed, like the blood on the windshield of a car crash, and on the rebound found work at an obscene bar and grill team whose employment stunk like a scorched earth slaughter regime. A neighbouring graveyard gave me garden harmony to sit and read on my tea break, my back sunk against the bark of a maple tree's trunk. Because these comics are more than just paper and ink, they're linked to a safe space where my head can think and wait for the darker things on my plate to dissipate. The next time I picked up The Walking Dead was a million miles from home, in Melbourne, Australia, on a working holiday visa on my own. I was stuck between the termite crawling walls of a hostel, with new strangers coming and going with the consistency of a brothel. Each room had bodies piled high overhead, so I'd find privacy in pages with the curtains drawn to my bunk bed. Some nights I'd escape on the city's tram lines, comic under my arm, to meet strangers on dates and stay out till dawn's morning would wake. Because these comics are more than just paper and ink. They're linked to a safe space where my head can think and wait for the darker things on my plate to dissipate. The next comic book is the anti-superhero commentary known as The Boys, which occupied a large portion of my young adult life, like background noise. I bought the first 2.99 issue on my first week of university, when the leaves dressed in an autumn-coloured burgundy. For 7 years, each month, this comic kept me company, like the clockwork visits of a separated parent, mindful of custody. Through sandpaper breakups on campus halls, and through hangover wake-up calls on shared house kitchen floors. Because these comics are more than just paper and ink. They're linked to a safe space where my head can think and wait for the darker things on my plate to dissipate. My final comic is the fantasy western known as Preacher, whose sunburnt pages encapsulate the perfect story for any reader. I grew up reading this comic on my cousin's acrylic carpet floor, after borrowing it from his extensive comic collection drawer. While him and his collective crew would play games of FIFA World Tour, I'd be left in the corner and ignored, a cast-out orphan, but delving deep into this comic's allure. And as I grew older, my love for this comic endured. Reading it became an annual ritual of the tallest order. My usual plan is a Christmas read as the snow paints the land, wearing striped fingerless gloves to warm my hands. Because friends and relationships come and go, but comics have never left me in a park on my own. For a lone ranger like me, prone to isolation necessity, our relationship is a lifelong fixture. I can always curl into a corner with comics between my fingers, to be enveloped in a resplendent world of words and pictures. Because these comics are more than just paper and ink. Their panels and pages are synced to the lifeblood coursing through my veins. So we travel in parallel lanes through the pain and mundane of the day-to-day strains and journey forward through future, gale force, winds and rain until the end of my life's reign. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Hey, Kirk, that was the first episode, folks. I don't know if hopefully the applause went through. I can't
That
stand.
was awesome. Yeah, I was not expecting that. Then I was like, who are these people? Yeah.
But that was amazing, and you were honestly the first ever person to perform on the Brand of Popcorn podcast.
Yay.
So that goes
Amazing.
that goes to you. Um, but like you said, while listening to your spoken word, I really did resonate with it because just like you, comics, what has been comics, manga, whatever that they've always been there during hard times, and like you said, they've been there your whole life. And
Mm.
like you said, relationships come and go, but comics they're always there. You mentioned a comic that I didn't quite like, but I love the adaptation.
Mm.
Um, how did you feel about the boys comic?
Okay, so this is interesting because even though I say it's real, because I had to put it in this in the poem because it was with me for 7 years. I picked it up on my first week of university, and then I finished like 3 years after university. And I really liked it when I read it. And I had every single issue. I had every single edition issue, like back home. And then I went home and I reread it. And yeah, I kind of didn't like it as much. There's like this, and like I'm the biggest fan of Garth Ennis. Like I could read Hellblazer and Preacher. Like I think the pace is beautiful in it. But for me, you're kind of right. The beginning is good, and the end of the boys is good. But there's this really weird chunk in the middle that's really slow, and I got bored. And I was like, oh, I couldn't change the poem by that point. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but I kind of agree with you. So
yeah, yeah. Like I don't know. For me, like Garth Ennis, he's always been the one. Like he's, I feel like he just hates superheroes. So it's like whenever he deconstructs superheroes, I like this time. I just felt like he was just putting raunchy stuff in to be raunchy. But then when I saw the show, The Boys,
yeah.
I like, I like this. I was wondering why do I like this better than the comic? But
Mm,
then I realized, like, oh, because the raunchy and nastiness they have meaning. In the
mm,
comic, there's a lot of things that don't have meaning, like Huey getting sexually assaulted by Black Noir. Like that didn't have to be there. That
yeah.
y'all did nothing with that, but yeah, but hey, you know, I really did enjoy that spoken word poem. Like I said, never been done before, so you the first. But
Right.
since we came to the end, I do well. I don't think I have my wheel up because my wheel is messed up. But we usually spin the wheel, give of your Mount Rushmore of things on the wheel. But since I don't got the wheel right now, we're going to do comic books. So if
Cool.
there was a Mount Rushmore of comic books, I guess there's four. So some are going to be left out. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore?
As in the my favorite comics.
I would say like favorite slash influ like I would say
Okay. Okay.
favorite slash influential comics like of
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. So 'cause as well, it's I guess it's slightly different from that poem as well because like that was a while ago. I put Sandman in there by Neil Gaiman. I really would. I reread it again and that was incredible reading it again. I was like, this is just I don't know. Like people really like his books, but to me, Neil Gaiman has never done anything as good. Like that is his Mount Rushmore, totally. He's never like I don't think any of his books are as good as Sandman. It's just perfect and amazing. So that Hellblazer, Garth Ennis's run, I think is just amazing. It's like it's a bit dated now, but it's just perfect. It's so good. It's just Garth Ennis being good. Um, and I also really like Pride of Baghdad by Brian K. Vaughan is really awesome. Have you read that?
I haven't, but I do know of Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah, I mean Saga's amazing as well. I mean it's really entertaining me at the minute. Obviously it's not finished yet, but like that as well. Yeah. Yeah, those are my kind of big ones really, I guess.
Okay, okay. Well, this has been fun. I could talk for hours, but I have things to do. I know you have things to do. I think I'm probably gonna have another show later today, so I have to go to the movies and see Borderlands. Oh God.
You know it's gonna disappoint you. You know it's gonna disappoint you probably.
Oh, trust me, I saw the. I saw the tomato meter. I saw a zero overnight. I was like, oh, at this point, I'm just doing it because, well, for one, nothing else is out, and two, just
Yeah,
it might be, it'll be a fun time.
yeah,
Hopefully, maybe.
fair enough.
But hey, where can the people find you, sir?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Instagram, Snake87 SMW. And then if you want me on Facebook, it's my real name, which is Scott Matthew Watson. And then yeah, you can find View of the Phoenix Trees. You can just type it into Google, View of the Phoenix Trees Kickstarter. It'll come up and you can add you. And we're starting the Kickstarter in mid September to mid November. Oh, and just quickly as well, one of the rewards, we've got normal rewards for you, like the usual comic rewards, like different covers and stuff, and additional stuff you can get. We also, if you want any backers, I will. If you pay me money, I will write you a poem, any topic or subject. Probably won't be as long as that one. It'll be about 3 minutes probably. But I'll write you any poem that you want, whatever subject you want, and I'll perform it to you. That's one of the rewards. So yeah.
Okay, okay. So, people, you heard it. You heard it here first. It's gonna be Kickstarter. Gonna be here in September. Hopefully later on down the line. You're gonna be on. Your local streaming service. Netflix giving money. Um, but also one more thing before we go,
Sure.
because it has been eating at me all the whole interview. Why snake?
Ah, sure. Yeah. Okay. So I went to work to get a part-time job at Wagamama's, and there was another Scott there, and everyone there was like, "We're not going to call you Scott 2. What do you want to be called?" I'm a big fan of Escape from New York and Metal Gear Solid.
Ah,
So I just said one time, call me Snake, and they all did it, and it was kind of awesome. So I've always put Snake in my WhatsApp group. So everyone, when I get added to like groups, people are like, "Who's Snake?" I'm like, "That's me." And then my ex girlfriend, I mentioned it to her, and she was like, "You should just start calling yourself Snake all the time." And then so having lived in Manchester, I kind of have started doing that. And then I had to put my name on these comics, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna do a pen name. I'm gonna do a pen name totally, not my real name. I'm gonna put Snake as my pen name, and it's good because it picked your interest. Do you know what I mean? So
right.
like more people might read my books because it's Snake. Um, yeah, I mean, if I could be called Snake, that'd be great. I way prefer that to Scott, but you know.
And, and also, it's also win-win because if you collab with somebody and the product don't do well, hey, that wasn't me, that was Snake.
Yeah, totally. As well.
but but hey, Snake, I have had a wonderful time talking to you today. I must bid you adieu though because
Thanks so
life
much.
is life is calling me. But people, you know where to find him. Find him on Instagram. Find him on Facebook using his government name. We ain't gonna say it again. You'll just have to watch this again towards the end. Hopefully, watch all the way through again so I can get those clicks. And go with Kickstarter. Follow the Kickstarter so you can see his work. Please do because, like I said, this thing looks amazing. Uh, this man probably is going to feed my comic addiction, make me give into this Kickstarter. But hey, y'all, we at the end. Just remember, when you always come to these interviews, just remember one thing: to always bring the popcorn. All right, y'all, we out of here. Peace.
Raider.